Full disclosure, the voice you are listening to now is artificially generated, brought to you by satisphonic.com. See the link in the description for more details. What's a movie that no human should ever suffer through? Gotti. Found it on Netflix and thought it was a cool made by Netflix telling of his story. It's not. It stars John Travolta in the title role and is, I think, a made-for-TV movie that happens to be on Netflix. It is excruciatingly bad. You're waiting for it to get better, and waiting, and waiting. It will not get better. It will anger you and destroy your faith in movies and the world in general. Avoid in general. Avoid. I watched it 3 years ago, accidentally, and I'm still angry. Repeat. Avoid. There is a new Gotti on Netflix. Just released. I'm gonna watch it now. That's a 3-part documentary on the real-life Gotti. Was hoping for a 3-part documentary on the making of the Travolta movie about Gotti. Fun fact. Travolta's Gotti actually played in theaters in limited release. There is a made-for-TV version, and Armand Assante plays Gotti. Another fun fact, Gotti received a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a very exclusive list of movies that received a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. You have Duck-Tide, Max Steel. Remember how shitty that movie was? Nutcracker. Remember how shitty that movie was? Nutcracker. Dragon Ball Evolution. If I could erase one thing from history, it would be that movie. Supposedly it led to Toriyama's return to the franchise, which resulted in Davis. So, edit, I stand corrected. Apparently it was not to be that spurred Toriyama's return, but the success of the animated feature, Battle of Gods, which was well received. Thank you for the straightforward corrections. Edit 2 found some illuminating quotes from Akira Toriyama that do connect his strong disappointment in Debe to his later involvement with the franchise, including his unprecedented full rewrite of Battle of Gods, the success of which may have encouraged his further involvement in later Dragon Ball projects. It's all connected. Mean Girls, 2 Cats. I love how this post works as both a list and a potential movie name. Mean Girls, 2 Cats. Oh my God, you can't just ask someone why they're Persian. Stop trying to make fetch happen. We are not dogs. It's never gonna happen. There was a Mean Girls 2. It wasn't very fetch. No, shut up. Stop asking questions. Mean Girls 2 isn't the worst movie I have ever seen, but it might be the biggest drop in quality for a sequel ever. Just so tough to sit through that trash when the first one was so good. A Wrinkle in Time. You had one job. What the hell is this movie? It literally skipped the entire end, the part that had most of the character development. It is entirely different, and some stuff which, just in case, I won't spoil. The director of that movie blocked me on Twitter when I watched it in an airplane, and tweeted that it was, quote, a hot mess. I didn't tweet that at her, to be clear, which means she must have been name-searching the movie years later, saw my incredibly mild offhand criticism, and manually blocked me. She is known in the industry for being an incredibly difficult and mean, like downright cruel and abusive to her crew, person to work with, so this doesn't surprise me. I could go on for a long time about how much I dislike this movie and why I think it's bad. The short version is that the book, published in 1962, is in between children's lit and young adult lit. You could make an argument for either category. I personally think the themes and character development deserve the YA label, and any good movie version of the book could age up the narrative appropriately to match modern expectations of YA, nothing absurd or plot-changing. The 2018 movie ages the narrative down, removing all traces of YA from the plot, which takes away all of the best parts of the story, the terrifying dystopia of Camazotz, the tragedy of Mrs. Whatsit, the tragedy of Mrs. Whatsit, the romance between Calvin and Meg, which is fundamental to later books in the series. Viewers are left with a ridiculously saccharine story about a girl and her dad with giant Oprah in the background just looming there. Such a letdown. The entire movie industry of the country of Serbia has been stained by one particular movie. Be glad you're not from Kazakhstan. Cats. My wife and I put it on a few weekends ago, hate watch and riff on it, but we weren't prepared for quite how bad that was. Dünyayı Kurtaran Adam, or the man who saved the world, also known as Turkish Star Wars. Not because it follows the Star Wars plot, but because it literally straight up uses clips of Star Wars. Like the opening sequence shows the Death Star exploding something like 3 or 4 times to illustrate that the big evil space wizard, who has oppressed the galaxy for 1,000 space years, set his sights on Earth. And then the heroes are in the X-Wings zooming through the trenches, with cardboard cutouts covering the fucking screen behind them over the rebel pilots. And when they win, it plays the Indiana Jones music. Other honorable mention rip-offs: Battlestar Galactica, original Doctor Who, Planet of the Apes, Flash Gordon and Moonraker. It's bad, and I mean bad, bad. It's like get rocked off your tits before watching it back. And about halfway through it has a half-hour-long advertisement for Islam. If you want to see the single worst movie ever produced by an actual studio, this is the one. It's a Turkish studio, in 1982, and holy fucknuckers is this film bad. It says movies people shouldn't watch, and I'm definitely gonna watch this one. Cats. When you consider the facts that Cats came out at the end of 2019, and the world shutting down in early 2020, there is a non-zero number of people whose last movie ever seen in the theater before they died was Cats. I dragged my 2 best friends to go see Cats when it came out. It ended up being the last thing the 3 of us did together before COVID locked. I dragged my 2 best friends to go see Cats, don't worry. They were going to drop you even if COVID didn't happen. Sometimes I wonder how they deal with me. I am not dead yet, but Cats was the last movie I saw in a theater, because I was pretty much dragged there by a couple of friends who insisted it would be hilarious. I didn't realize it was my last movie until this moment, and now I have to figure out how to rectify that sooner than later. I dunno, dude. I saw that in theaters, and it was a riot. You never heard a place laughing so hard together. It'd get quiet, and then there would be something like a 5-second close-up hold on Judi Dench's face, almost like no one told her they were filming, and the room erupted into laughter again. A socially acceptable but still technically illegal intoxicant may have been in the bloodstreams of basically everyone in the room, though. I've never laughed harder at a movie, and I think everybody should experience the feeling of helplessly dying of asphyxiation from a cat named Christopher Jones at least once. But what if it's the rumoured cats with CG buttholes? I would honestly watch that for at least 2 minutes. Release the butthole cut. I completely disagree. Cats is an absolute masterpiece. You just need to change your perspective on what it's really about. Instead of trying to understand the plot, you should see it as a battle against an endless stream of heralded actors and a horrible script. Watch it just to see Dammy Judi Dench struggle to maintain her composure through a 3-minute nonsense monologue. Watch it for Taylor Swift licking her paws. Watch it for Idris Elba trying to make sense of why he's a villain. And do this while you're very, very baked. I promise you'll come away with a very different impression. That Winnie the Pooh horror movie. Why was that made? Because Winnie the Pooh became public domain. At least they went horror and not porn. That you know of. I'm ready for some orgasms. Legitimately only because they could. It went into the public domain, and as a big fuck you to Disney, they made a movie to the complete polar opposite of what Winnie the Pooh was. It's like bringing your dog to your neighbor's yard to shit because fuck that guy. I watched this this weekend as part of my 31 Nights of Halloween movie marathon. Hated it. Giggly. Live action Avatar. The Last Airbender. They called him Ong, and I left. For a second I said to myself, holy shit, have I been saying it wrong this whole time? And then I realized I never said it. They did. It was a fucking cartoon, not a book. They did the same thing with the Harry Potter audiobooks. All of a sudden, J.K. Rowling decided the movies she helped make were pronouncing her main villain's name wrong all these years. I saw this movie with my kids. My daughter, 7 at the time, was so in Avatar. She dressed up in character and everything. About 13 of the way into the movie, she leaned over and whispered, "This is really bad, right?" She was 7. She was 7. Beat me to it, lol. I'll never get over those 5 earthbender guys doing a whole dance number just to move a rock that they could have moved faster if they literally just picked it up and threw it. There is no live action movie in Ba Sing Se. The Earth King has invited you to Lake Liaogai. The Emoji Movie. Even the kids who were so amped to see it were bored. I watched that when it came out free in Netflix, just to see if it sucked as bad as I thought it would. Yeah, it was. 10 out of 10. On this same note, also Dragon Ball Evolution. Jaws. The Revenge. Just tried to watch it and made it only halfway. Terrible. Human Centipede 1, 2, or 3. I was bored one day and watched all 3. Steer clear. Jack and Jill. I do not wish this on my worst enemy. My fave is when the winning team of a competition on Survivor are forced to watch it as a prize. YouTube link. A Serbian film. I read a great review of this one time. It said that you won't hate this movie, but you'll hate yourself for watching it. That's pretty much true. My friend and I saw it together. We sat there in silence as we just stared at the no-signal message on the TV. We had no words. You should have hit play on the DVD player. Strip away its shock value, and it's just not a well-crafted film. I've watched it twice, hoping to gain some insight beyond its parody of political correctness nature, as mentioned by the director-co-creator. Instead, I found it to be an aimless attempt to be the antithesis to such a topic. It's honestly just boring, which is one of the worst things a film can be. Holmes and Watson, a movie so terrible, the studio said it should never see the light of day. TV warned it would never be aired, and yet for some reason, Netflix elected to ignore both and put it out there anyway. It's rare I give up on a movie before it even starts, but based on the trailer, I didn't even bother. The reviews and all the backlash it got seemed to support my decision. The Sherlock Holmes with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. I think I made it 10 minutes in before giving up. Oh my God, I love that movie is something I have never heard anyone say. Had us in the first half lull. Muck and Me. Paul Rudd turned it into a funny bit on Conan, but do not be fooled. I have never in my life felt such horrific boredom. An absolute disgrace. Son of the Mask. Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. Aragon edit for spelling errors. For me, it's Artemis Fowl. As a kid, I read all the books. I fucking loved the Artemis Fowl series. When the movie came out, I watched it and the fuck. Space Jam. A New Legacy. The trailer was enough to warn me away. A whole subplot of the books is that Holly Short is the first female LEP recon ever. Root is hard on her. Root is hard on her because he knows she needs to be exemplary in order for other women to be on the fall. Who did they cast as Root? Dame Judi Dench. A Serbian film. Seriously, don't make my mistake. You cannot unsee this. Literally refuse to even watch it. Too far for me, and I love a twisted horror. I should not have clicked on the shaded part. Still haven't learned. You can't unsee things. Might be enough Reddit or one day. I've only read the Wikipedia synopsis. I regret to inform you that it actually gets worse from there. Highlander 2, The Quickening. There should have only been one. Battlefield Earth. I know the guy who wrote it, J.D. He was getting some real traction with his career and had a few films already under his belt. He was approached by John Travolta's company to write the screenplay. Reportedly, G wrote a fantastic script that Travolta and his reps were really excited about. Everyone was raving about it. A long time later, Jade was invited to see a rough cut of the movie. He said when he saw it, he didn't recognize a single line of dialogue from his script. The film was heavily funded by the Church of Scientology, and they had completely changed Yeoju's story into a hot mess of garbage. Jade begged his reps to get his name off of the project, but they eventually talked him out of it so they wouldn't burn bridges. They also advised him that having a credit in a Hollywood mega-blockbuster would skyrocket his career. When the movie bombed hard, tons of articles and critics mentioned how bad the writing was. Judd said he became a laughingstock overnight and couldn't get meetings for years afterward. It completely derailed his career for a long time. That fucking blows. Scientology used him as their scapegoat. Also, it kinda reminds me of the author of Deuce. When they made a movie about the book, they kept changing it more and more and more and more till the end product in no way even remotely resembled the book. The movie is all running and action and Brad Pitt looking for a cure. The book is an anthology series about a journalist traveling across a post-Deuce America and interviewing survivors, chronicling the beginning, escalation, the war itself, the world war against zombies, the world war against zombies, the woos, and the aftermath. A multi-decade conflict. No cure, no miracle weapon, no camouflage, just years and years of ceaseless war against the hordes of undead. Never trust Hollywood or any group that operates in it. 50 Shades of Grey. I was 16 when my mom told me to read it. Well, Yep, I wondered how they managed to turn this book into a movie, only to discover that they didn't. Human Centipede. Part 2 was 1/1,000,000th worth. That part when that lady, that was the moment I knew I was watching an entirely new kind of cinema. It's Pat, the movie. I came here to say part 2, 1 and 3 weren't so bad, but 2 really took the biscuit. The Ayn Rand Atlas Shrugged trilogy. You could arguably make a compelling film about a repellent philosophy, Leni Riefenstahl for instance. But this ain't it. Each installment got progressively fewer tomatoes, 12%, 4%, 4%, and 0%, none percent.